Hello, everybody. My name is Rob Sanchez. I am with LIVG Ministries, and this is my supernatural story. I remember receiving a call from a medical doctor saying, Rob, can you please come and pray? And I said, sure, what's going on? She said, we are having a manifestation of a baby crying in our hospital, and there's no one here. We are having this strange cry within the clinic, and we have doctors and nurses that don't even want to show up to work because they just feel this weird presence. So I take my brother and the two of us go, we begin to pray. As we get there, the Spirit of the Lord speaks to me and he says these words. This used to be a Mason clinic. The doctors here were part of a cultish belief, and he says the babies that are crying are the babies that were aborted. It's the cry of innocent blood. And so I remember going in there, feeling this and beginning to pray. As I began to pray, I felt this release take place in the atmosphere. As this spiritual release took place, the doctor asked if I wouldn't mind praying for different people within the clinic. And so as I finished ministering, this one young lady walks by and the Spirit of the Lord grabs a hold of me and he says, prophesy. And I grab this lady as she's walking by. She wasn't even part of a prayer circle, nothing. She's just walking by, and I grabbed her by the hand and I said, I got to share something with you. I said, the men in your family will no longer be prematurely cut off in their prime. Premature death has ended in your family. And when I touched her, I had an open vision. And in this open vision, I saw two men standing in the heavens. The two men, one was her uncle and the other was her cousin. And I understood by the Spirit that the uncle had passed away of a heart issue, that he had a problem breathing. And I saw him with his hand on his heart, standing next to Christ. And I literally saw him saying, I can breathe, I can breathe. And as this begins to unfold, I see another young man, brilliant smile, olive complexion, bright eyes, wavy hair. He was a handsome young man. And when I looked at him, I literally saw him put his hand on his head and he said, tell her my head does not hurt anymore. And I began to look at this young lady and I said, I see two men standing in the heaven. One's your uncle, the other is your cousin. I said, your uncle passed away from a heart disease prematurely. And I said, and your cousin, I said, he passed away in a violent car accident. And I said, and I see a trauma that suffered on his head. And I said, but I hear the Spirit of the Lord saying the men in your family will no longer prematurely die, that God was ending this. And I said, matter of fact, I said, I need you to go and tell your auntie something. I said, I need you to tell your auntie that her son is not in hell like the preacher said. I said, we understand that this young man had many issues, but one is not salvation. He was delivered. Go tell your auntie her son is in heaven, that she does not need to cry anymore. This young lady that I'm praying for and speaking this word into, she falls on the floor and she's weeping and crying. And I said, to confirm this word, I said, you must know that he's known as a smiley man in the earth. When I said these words, she immediately rises up and she says, I know you've seen my uncle and I've known you've seen my cousin. Not only did he die in an accident, he was known as Smiley. His nickname was Smiley. So when I said your cousin was known as a smiley man in the earth, they were overwhelmed. She goes home, tells her auntie, the Lord said that your son is in the heavens. And I know he is because this man prayed for me and said he saw him standing in the earth and he was known as a smiley man. The mother says to this young lady, she says, the next time you see the man of God, tell him I said thank you and to give him a big hug. I ran into her probably about 4 years later. She remembered me immediately. She comes up, she grabs hold of me and she said, this is on behalf of my auntie. She wanted to say thank you because you gave her peace. The word that you spoke brought deliverance and healing to her life. She was no longer tormented, thinking that her son was in hell, but knowing that God saved him and he was in the heavens. See, there's so many times that people's lives come and go unexpectedly. But all I know is this, the God I serve is full of grace, love, and mercy, and he sets people free. Maybe you're watching today and you need a word of encouragement. This is what I hear the Spirit of the Lord saying. I'm not only for you, I am with you. And I've heard the cries that have been in your heart, and I will answer it with fire. I will answer it with presence, and I will turn the season around. I hear the Spirit of the Lord saying, get ready. There will be mighty salvations taking place within your family. Their hearts will be changed. Their lives will be transformed by my love. Do not look back, look ahead, and you will see the grace of God, for it is more than sufficient. For even as I delivered one from the pit, so will I deliver your family from the days of trouble. For good things have been set before you, says the Spirit of the Lord. My name is Rob Sanchez, and this is my supernatural story.